Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You're going to want to take your socks off real quick so I don't blow them off, because I got so mad today, I almost had a stroke right before the James Show started. Our studios are at the American Airlines Center here in downtown Dallas. Yay, it's a cool location, whatever. But there's a street right next to us called Houston Street, and it has bike lanes, one on each side. And I don't mean a bike lane like someone painted a stripe that has the goofy little stick figure bike logo in it. They build honest-to-God curbs chewing up a lane in either direction, specifically for bicycles. So they have a bike lane that cars cannot cross into or share or even parallel park in or anything like that. It's eaten up a lane in each direction. And we're in downtown. We're next to the giant Coliseum. And I've joked, if you're new to the show and you haven't heard the jokes, I've joked that since I have worked here, I can look out my window, and well, if I'm in Bruce's office, I can look out the window and see the bike lane. And I've worked here for over a year now. I've seen 6 bicycles in the bicycle lane during that time. In the same amount of time, we've had 5 eclipses. So the likelihood of a biker actually using the bike lane is so rare, it's only slightly less rare than a freaking eclipse. So I don't know what metric was told to the Dallas public when this idea was sold, or to the city council, or to the city manager, or the DART, or whoever made this terrible decision to put all these bike lanes everywhere. But it had to be more than 6 in a year. This has to be a failure of civil engineering. Now, that drives me insane. I have to walk past it every day. I have to look out. It's empty right now. On the other side of our studios, we have train tracks where empty trains are just going back and forth all day, every day. It's like the Truman Show. It's just all one big theater, just flushing tax money down the toilet. But today, this is how I know there's a God. And this is how I know he finds entertainment by messing with me. I think I'm one of his favorites, kind of like, like your dog, how you like to throw the ball and pretend like you threw it, so he goes across the backyard thinking he's going to play catch. Where'd it go? This is God messing with me today. Real funny God. Today I'm walking back from the 7-Eleven. Just got some gourmet, delicious food off the rollers. So happy. And while I'm waiting to cross, I see 2 of these dorks coming down in their bicycles. And they're in bicycle gear. And bicycle gear is not really acclimated to cold weather, but they had the top to bottom skin tight. So it looks like they're in a suit. Like they're like some sort of superhero. Like, what's the Black Spider-Man called? Is he just called Black Spider-Man? Venom, right. They come down in their little Venom suits. There were 2 guys wearing their goofy little dork helmets, and mother of God, neither one of them was in the bike lane. Neither one of them was in the bike lane? How often does this happen? So that's 2 guys. Let me tell you something, bikers. I've had a little beef with y'all, and I've tried to be cool about it for years, but I can't hold back anymore. Guess what? People, and I'm not talking about a kid on a bicycle trying to go to get a snow cone on in his Huffy. I'm talking about you grown men who are like 30, 40, 50, sometimes 60 years old, and you got your fancy little 10-speed or 18-speed or whatever it is, and you've got your goofy-looking helmet on, and you're dressed in your skin-tight clothes and your bicycle gear. We don't like you. Nobody likes you. None of us like you. And it's not that we hate you. Like, I'm not seething with hate. We just think you're all dorks. You look like dorks. You have a dorky hobby. This is how you choose to get your exercise. Let's get on a children's toy as a grown man and interrupt traffic in a major metropolitan area. I don't care if you go to like a bike lane, or if you go to a park, or if you go down the Katy Trail. But you bring nothing but problems when you're out on the real streets with real vehicles, with real people trying to go somewhere. These weren't guys that were trying to go to work. They weren't couriers delivering a subpoena for some court case. These were dorks. These were grown men who decided, it's a beautiful day. I think I'm going to go block some traffic. And you're the guys who gripe for the bike lanes, how you want your own space, how you like to, everyone needs to be aware of and share the road. No, we see what you do. We see what you do in your bikes. You ignore stop signs and traffic lights when it's convenient. When you pull up at an intersection and there's a red light and there's no one coming the other way, what do? You take off. So you don't want to have to follow all the rules that other vehicles follow, but you want to have all the rights other vehicles have. No. This is the last straw. Bikers, if you're on a street with the bike lane, you better be in that bike lane for the love of God. You're adding thousands of hours of misery to the life of everyone around you. The fact that that lane is just that road is one lane in each direction instead of two means thousands of people have had to wait thousands of hours longer than they otherwise would have to get out of a Stars game, a Mavericks game, a Grupo Frontera concert, or just getting out of work in a regular rush hour. You are adding to the misery of thousands of people around you, and then you're not even going to use the bike lanes? Hell no. If you're a biker and I see you in a road and you're not in the bike lane, I'm going to hockey check you off your bike when you go past me. It might hurt. I'm a pretty big dude. It's going to hurt you worse. If you're going to have the bike lanes, if you're going to be a freak about it, if you're going to have your little protest and your signs and take up traffic, you better damn well be using those bike lanes until all of them are ripped up, because that's my real goal. I don't want you to stop from riding the bike. I'm tired of the bike privileges. I'm tired of the two-faced bike community where you want to have all the rights of the road, but you don't have to stop at all the signs. You don't have to stop at all the lights. You want to have your own little special lane and not use it? Hell no. That's my cutoff. You're on notice, bikers. We all think you're dorks, and you better stay in that bike lane. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Am I too harsh on bikers? I don't think so. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. There was a funny interview that happened back when, I believe it was George W. Bush's second term and in his last year, and it was someone followed along with him. It was like a 60 Minutes or a Dateline or whatever. But in the interview, the journalist said that they were riding in the Beast, in the armored car that the president travels around in, and it's different whenever you're in the car with the president because you don't have to stop at any traffic lights. You don't have to slow down and wait to merge when you're getting on the interstate or whatever. The path is cleared for you and there's no stopping. Now, what you do see is everyone that's waiting at every intersection for you to pass, their day has been interrupted for a few minutes here. And for some of them, they think it's cool because, hey, look, it's the president. Some of them are fans. Some of them, you drive past them and they flip you birds. Some of them flip you double birds. And the journalist said at one point they were making a turn and there was a lady who was stopped by the motorcade. Double birds pointed at the president. And the journalist and the president could clearly see it. And she felt kind of embarrassed. And she asked him, what do you think when you see that coming from, one of your citizens? He goes, well, I guess that one's not a fan. So with that, I have a response from Eric on my diatribe against urban bicycle enthusiasts not using the bike lane. He says, what a douche canoe. I didn't know that lent itself to canoeing, or I don't know, I could even pull a kayak off in that, but okay, Eric, I guess he's not a fan. But look, if you don't like my rundown, my criticism of the urban biker, why don't you tell me why I'm wrong? Because I have another piece of feedback here, also from Facebook. This one comes from Greg, and this is a good way to disagree with old Parker over here. Greg says, hey, I'm a cyclist, but I don't run red lights or stop signs, and I agree. Cycling in downtown Dallas is dumb. See, we already have a guy who can give some credit where credit's due, even though he overall disagrees with me. He says, bike lanes are useless because they're usually full of crap and dangerous. We should not have any of them existing. So, yes, I dressed in cycling clothing. Cycling hurts, wrist, hands, back, etc. Then there are the truly rude, nasty drivers. You could be minding your own business in your own space, and they still try to knock you down. I don't city ride unless in a large group and in areas where there are two lanes going in the same direction. Thank you so much. You know how much that means to me? To know that there's good cyclists out there making it for the bad ones? It means a lot. But he also says there's a lot of cyclists out there that give us a bad name. Those are the really fast guys that do 20 miles an hour plus, but it does keep you in shape. I'm 70 years old and can ride 45 miles. See, much better criticism than Eric over here, who just said, what a douche canoe. Thank you very much. Round of applause for the good cyclist out there. who could admit that there are bad cyclists out there that give the rest of you a bad name. God, they're annoying. All right, this next story is not a good one. There are 4 Tren de Aragua members arrested in Valverde County. Now, Valverde, that's not around here. We have Dallas, Tarrant, Denton, Collin, Van Zant, Kaufman. Where's Valverde County? It's down on the border. It's on the Rio Grande. You know, sometimes I talk to Thaddeus, who is in Terrell County. It's right next to that. It's just a little bit down the river, the next one adjacent to Terrell County. So we're not talking about the violent Venezuelan gang had 4 members that were arrested here or in like Carrollton or Burleson or something. But they were arrested Valverde County on New Year's Eve. Now, they were part of a larger group. There was 22 illegals total, some of them from Mexico, but they also had Colombia, Peru, and Venezuela. I'm not just super suspicious, I guess hyper suspicious, ultra suspicious about these South American ones, because nobody is walking from Colombia to Valverde County, Texas. Someone's helping these people. This betrays a sense of organization. This betrays a sense of, not just they got some help from the cartels and the coyotes. No, someone's sending them, or someone's picking them up, or someone's funding this. There's too much of this going on. So we have them. 22 were picked up in a crowd following interviews with the DPS officers. They also identified some of these guys based on their tattoo markings, which prison gangs, catch on, man. I think those tattoo markings are causing you more problems than they are helping you out. What do I know? I don't run any prison gangs or any gangs, not even a bicycle gang, huh? See what I did there? Bicycle gangs. The concern I have here, and if you look at a couple stories on this and try and dig some more details at it, go to the comment section. And a lot of people are thinking exactly what you're thinking right now. Oh my God, if we just let in 11 million illegals, and it's not like they had a visa and they overstayed the visa. We don't know who these people are. There's no vetting whatsoever. They're just gotaways or never even got encountered at all. And, the low estimate, 11 million, could be up to 20 million of these. How many of these guys are in our country now? How many Al-Qaeda is in our country? How many ISIS is in our country? How many Taliban's in our country? How many Tren de Aragua is in our country? Are we going to be dealing with this for years and years and years? How long is it going to take before we don't have to hear about Tren de Aragua ever again? Or is this just a fact of life in America? It's got so inculcated over the last 4 years, we're not going to see it significantly decrease over the next decade or so. I mean, is this just the new normal? Great. Now we have to deal with South American cartels and gangs in our streets in Texas. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm not saying that's what I believe. I'm a little more optimistic. I'm thinking hopefully we won't be hearing about these goobers anymore here in about 4 or 5 years. But I don't know. I think a good case can be made that we've imported so many problems just over the last administration that this is something that our kids are going to be dealing with, and maybe even our kids' kids. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk about how to keep yourself healthy during cold and flu season. Since it's going to be this cold, well, I guess cold and flu season has a good chance to spike up. Can you do more than just wash your hands? We'll ask a doctor next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What do you think about this Greenland talk? Speaking of cold, speaking of snow, what do you think about this Greenland talk? I love the idea of adding a 51st state. It's bothered me to no end that, like when my parents were born, maybe when you were born, some of the people listening born, there was only 48 states. They added 2 states when both of my parents were kiddos. They've added 0 since I've been born. This is the longest our country has gone without adding a state, without adding territory. And when you look at like the life cycle of empires or societies or civilizations or whatnot, there's the growth, there's the expansion, and then there's the collapse. And the collapse, it isn't just like a societal collapse. There's usually a territorial collapse that goes with it. And so it kind of feels like you start that process the second you stop expanding, you've gone into the next phase. You're not the strong empire that's on the way up and gaining in power and strength and prestige. You've plateaued off and you're probably rotting on the inside, getting ready for the collapse that inevitably happens on a long enough time scale. So the idea that we haven't added more territory, it's not just like a pride thing, or it's not me just being like, I want to collect them all like Pokemon. It's that, you want to be, you want to be thinking that the American empire is not in the collapse phase. We're still robust. We're still growing. We're still the hyperpower of the world. And this would be a good outward sign of that. Plus, I find it kind of irritating that Canada is so much like America and still tries to maintain that there's something different. No, you're not. No, you're not. Can you tell when someone's from Vancouver? Can you tell when someone's from Edmonton? I mean, they may say a boot, but other than that, they even have our accent. They dress like us. They listen to the same music. Like even when you compare them to Brits, they like watch the BBC and all kinds of goofy stuff like Ab Fab, and the Australians kind of have a wonky accent too. But the Canadians, no, they're just Diet America. They should have been part of us years ago. But Greenland's a situation that, okay, maybe a little more foreign. They're currently colonized by Denmark, which is a weird way to put it. They have a colony out there. Yeah, they've had a colony there for how long? 500 years. Well, I don't think it's a colony anymore. I think it's just part of Denmark. But Donald Trump has accelerated the conversation because on his True Social account, he retweeted or posted, whatever the proper terminology is, somebody who's supposedly a Greenlander, but he's wearing a red hat that says "Make America Great Again." And it looks like he's in a Carhartt jacket. He's got a beard going on. And he has a weird accent that I guess this is what Danish people sound like. I don't know. I don't know any Danish references out of, I don't know, Beowulf. But listen, he's over here saying that joining America sounds like a good deal.
Buy Greenland?
Buy Greenland.
Why do you want Trump to buy Greenland?
Because we don't want to be colonized by Danish government anymore. We get ripped every year about our minerals from Greenland. We are the richest nation in the world, and we don't get to use it. Denmark's using us too much.
Do you like America?
I love America, but people are too fat over there.
Yeah, that he laughed at the people are too fat over there. He was obviously making a joke, which kind of hits close to home, buddy. Okay, so I put on some weight over the holidays. Can he see me through this screen? But if you didn't understand that, let me translate some of this anymore. Why do you want Trump to buy Greenland? Because we don't want to be colonized by Danish government anymore. We get ripped every year about our minerals from Greenland. We are the richest nation in the world, and we don't get to use it. Denmark using us too much. Do you like America? I love America, but people are fat over there. And it's not talking about Garrett. What are you, Garrett? 140 pounds? He's a thin fella. You don't have to tell me. I don't really need to know your weight. We're not doing a physical over here. So I like the sound of that. Let's add Greenland. What do we got to do? We got to buy it. Why do we have to buy it? How about we just, we'll give you $1 million, or we'll just give them something real puny. What are they going to do? Stop us? We could just roll boats up on the coast and be like, Greenland is mine now. And it would be ours. That was my attempt at their accent. Sorry. I also like the talk of adding the Panama Canal Zone. That needs to be part of America again. Maybe we should just take all of Panama. Maybe that should be the 51st state. Or we'll add Greenland. Panama would be the 52nd state. But that was part of the talks that he brought up last year. And then he kind of, like when he brought up the Canada to Trudeau, I feel like that was kind of a joke, but also kind of testing the waters, which is interesting because he was asked about that in his press conference today. He was, where's he at? He's at Mar-a-Lago for this. All right, this was at about, 11:20.
If we were to work under the assumption that you're serious about making Canada the 51st state of the United States, the leader of the Conservative Party in Canada said, under no circumstance will it ever be the 51st state.
Maybe he won't win, but maybe he will. I don't
point, you had suggested
Listen, I don't care what he says.
But Sir Lopez, you're considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Canada?
No. Economic force. Because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line, and you take a look at what that looks like. And it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit.
Wow. So here we go. I like the sound of this. This is the America I was looking for. The America that's still expanding. Who says Manifest Destiny's done? Maybe God was telling us we need to take this beautiful country of his all the way from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. And then when we do that, take it north, all the way to the North Pole. Oh, Canada, you're going to be ours. You just don't know it yet. You will love us. You will be 51st state, 52nd state, 53rd state, 54th state. You can still watch hockey. That's fine. You can still live in igloos or whatever y'all do up there. Ride around on moose. Meese. How do you say that plural, moose? It's a joke. I am joking with both of you. Why do I have news people talking in my head to correct me? Reindeer. And you know what happens if we get Canada all the way to the North Pole? We get Santa's Workshop on top of that. How much more evidence do you need, damn it? I like the sound of this. This is great. All right. Coming up next on the James Show, besides the new Manifest Destiny, we're going to talk to Jason Taylor. He's an expert on small businesses and talk about why the economy is causing distress among small business. That's next on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, let's go. All right. Are people optimistic about the economy? Or are they pessimistic about the economy? Because I see some reports that say optimism is through the roof. I see this other one, small firms are bullish after the election. And then I see this one from USA Today. Oh, then a pop-up happened. Small business distress has suddenly turned to optimism and hiring. So I think things generally sound good. Let's ask a guy whose job is to keep an eye on all these things. Jason Taylor's back on the James Show from CodeLaunch.com. And what else are you running these days I can promote for you?
Well, James, thanks for having me back, and Happy New Year. I'm excited to be kicking off a 2025 that is going to involve a Code Launch event in Mexico for Mexico founders, a Code Launch event in Canada for Canadian founders, and the World Championship back here in DFW, November 12th at Gillies for our U.S. founders. So, yep, going to run it back this year. So
you're doing one in Mexico, one in America, and then one in America's new 51st state, Canada. Love that one.
So maybe Justin Trudeau can be our judge.
Well, he's got some free time now. He needs another gig. All right, so let's talk about Jason Taylor. You deal with people trying to create businesses. You deal with startups. When there's more optimism, is it easier to get capital? Are you seeing more people jumping on the startup bandwagon, or has there not been enough time to really gauge since the election?
Well, I think it's a little of the latter. The optimism is definitely a forward-looking perspective, and optimism is definitely at a huge high. It's at a 4-year high mark, and the jump from the pre-election weight to the post-election weight was the highest jump in many decades. So business owners and business decision makers know that a pro-business president who's already established himself as a pro-business and pro-economic power president is about to be inaugurated, and they are expecting a healthier pro-business environment going forward. That's for sure.
Well, so many of the startups that end up being businesses that we interact with every day, you know, whether it's a Google or a Facebook or an Amazon, or so many of these happen on our side of the planet in America. Why are we the leaders in that and not countries with higher academic scores like Japan and China, or countries with higher populations like India? What's so special about us?
Well, I think that is the outcome of an investment in 100 years or more of the American dream and free enterprise and capitalism. And from that, we have a very strong university framework throughout this country not just the very top elite like Stanford, like Harvard, the Ivy Leagues and others, but there are great innovative thinkers and very leading edge technologists that come out of institutions all across this country. And there are a lot of, there's a strong fabric of venture capital, private equity capital, and angel investors, people like me who've had some success along the way and are looking to deploy capital into new growth ventures. And so we lead the way when it comes to that, and we're poised to continue leading the way, especially with a very strong pro-business and pro-energy president about to be inaugurated.
Well, are you looking for some specific legislative change, like the tax cut to be extended or some deregulation, before you expect some small businesses to step on the gas and start expanding?
The biggest factor that investors are looking for is the 10-year interest rate to start to trickle downward and normalize in the threes. And so, the Fed lowered their interest rates in the fall a couple of times, and it hasn't really had an effect on market interest rates. In fact, the market interest rates have continued to be stubbornly high and even increase. Today, I think the 10-year Treasury note is at 4.64. That is a rate that keeps capital from flowing into long-term investments that grow and pay off later, 7 to 10 years. And that's what a tech startup investment is. It's a 7 to 10-year illiquid investment that you're hoping to get a very large gain on a long time from now, but you could also lose entirely. And when there's a 10-year note sitting there that will take that money and guaranteed to pay you back 4.64 annually, hey, that has to be considered before you invest in a early stage tech venture. So when we start to see that 10-year note come down into the threes, you're going to start seeing a lot more growth in venture capital, tech startups, and early stage ventures.
Jason, I think I have $1 million idea for Code Launch. Tell me if I'm off my rocker, and don't let anybody steal this.
Let's go. What is it?
All right, so people aren't smoking anymore, right? No one's doing cigarettes or cigars or pipes or anything, but they are vaping, and the people that vape are also the drinkers. So is there some way we can infuse a vape pen with the minerals, vitamins, nutrients, whatever, to help you get over a hangover? Because my wife found a good hangover cure, and I just thought that would be a great crossover if we could somehow put that in a vape platform.
Well, that's a very creative idea, James. I don't know that you have the technology figured out how to deliver it. And so what we would say to you if you were a Code Launch founder is that you don't have technical viability yet. You have identified an opportunity, but you haven't got the technical solution. And so we probably wouldn't advance you very far, but I encourage you to keep coming up with great ideas that could turn into an awesome technology product at Code Launch.
Dude, I think we just got to squirt some B vitamins into some vape juice, and we're halfway there, Jason.
Well, you could always use the Zen model, right? You could put a packet of vitamins into your lip before you go to bed and then wake up fresh without any hangover. How about that?
I don't know the Zen model. I just really like the idea of one vice sort of compensating for another vice. And when you combine the two, you actually end up with something that's somewhat healthy, I guess. For people with real startup ideas, how do they get involved with Code Launch?
They just check out codelaunch.com. We'll have the details and the dates announced in the next week or so. Very excited about helping tech startup founders launch at codelaunch.com in 2025.
Great. Jason Taylor, appreciate you being on the show again. Good to talk to you.
You're welcome, James. Talk to you soon.
You could have met him if you came out to the James Show meetup we had about a month or so ago. He was one of the regular guests that showed up there. Coming up next, we're going to go back to this press conference that happened at Mar-a-Lago this morning in the 11 o'clock hour. And what do you think of the idea of changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America? We'll talk about that next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I hate those guys. And when it's summer, when they're like, is it hot enough for you? Don't be the guy that says, is it cold enough for you? Yeah, it's cold enough for me. I hate this weather. I cannot stand this. I realize I'm a big baby. I realize, Parker, it's only 38. No, this is too cold for comfort in my book. And it also doesn't help that you could bust a pipe in my house. It could freeze a bridge and I could wreck and die on it. No, I don't like this weather. I don't like if it's going to have like guaranteed like 5 inches of snow every time it gets this cold and, the kids can play and there'll be some upside. There's no upside to this. Where it's just cold and miserable and then some ice might fall out of the sky a little bit after the James show tomorrow is I think when they're expecting it. Because that's how they gauge these things in the like the National Weather Service. So they have one in Fort Worth. They have a big one in Norman. They all use the James show as sort of their time reference. We expect a wintry mix to be falling about 1.5 hours after the James show concludes on Wednesday. That's how it comes across on the wire over here on the Telegraph. Donald Trump at a press conference today, Mar-a-Lago. He's just floating some ideas, one of which, hey, thinking about purchasing Greenland. That sounds like it'd be an interesting choice for 51st state. I would have guessed Puerto Rico, but I'll take Greenland. That's got to be pretty cool. He's also floating the idea of taking the Panama Canal back. Canada is the 51st state, or merging with them, letting them keep their own provinces and stuff. We'll just share an army, I suppose. But what about this one? Talking about, the relationship with the U.S., Canada, Mexico. Some people are getting all serious, like, oh, he's trying to bring back the North American Union, and they were trying to get rid of the dollar and establish the Amero. And it was a conspiracy theory about, 18 years ago that hasn't come true yet, so it still retains conspiracy theory status. But I remember as part of that, one of the ideas that was floated back then was changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He said it today like it's real. And you know what? I'm not sure this is the best change. And I'll offer my recommendation after you hear Trump.
We'll impose new tariffs so that the products on our stores will once again be stamped with those beautiful words, made in the USA. And we are not treated well, as you know, by Canada. Canada is subsidized to the tune of about $200 billion a year, plus other things. They don't essentially have a military. They have a very small military. They rely on our military. It's all fine, but, they got to pay for that. It's very unfair. I have so many great friends. One of them is the great one, Wayne Gretzky. I said, run for prime minister. You'll win it. It'll take 2 seconds. But he said, well, am I going to run for prime minister or governor? You tell me. I said, I don't know. Let's make it governor. I like it better. But no, something's going to have to be done. Same thing with Mexico. We have a massive deficit with Mexico, and we help Mexico a lot. They're essentially run by the cartels, and can't let that happen. Mexico's really in trouble, a lot of trouble. Very dangerous place. And we're going to be announcing at a future date pretty soon. We're going to change, because we do most of the work there, and it's ours. We're going to be changing, sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Love all that, man. He's just throwing out ideas faster than you can swat at him. What do you mean, Wayne Gretzky? Would he even be a good prime minister? Like, what is even his economic beliefs? Do we have any idea, or you just impressed with his slap shot from the early 90s? I mean, like, do you even know how he would govern? Is he an Austrian economist? Do we even know? But could he be worse than Trudeau? Boy, that'd be hard. But I do like the idea of changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico. And I know the idea of the Gulf of America gets a lot of people worked up. And it should, because, more of America has more coastline on the Gulf of Mexico than Mexico does. America. And that doesn't make any sense, that if it touches more of us, why is it named after Mexico? Bleep, yeah. Don't worry, Garrett. You don't have to get the dump. Bleep and day now. Yeah, there's all bleeps. But you get that little patriotism. You feel that. Almost jingoism pop up. Yeah, it should be the Gulf of America. No, it's not the Gulf of Mexico, and it shouldn't be the Gulf of America. What do you think about the Gulf of Texas? That's my idea. Why not the Gulf of Texas? I know technically the Gulf of Mexico has more coastline on both Mexico and America. But why not us? You know, the I think best argument for that is if you look at the Gulf of Mexico, you name it after Mexico. Mexico touches the Pacific Ocean far more than it touches the Gulf of Mexico. Should that be the Gulf that bears your namesake? I think not. Also, for America, that's just the underside of America. You have all that beautiful Atlantic coast. You have all that Pacific coast. Does it really need to be the Gulf of America? No. But for Texas, that is our Gulf. That's the only major body of water that we butt up against. It would be the defining point of, if you said the Gulf of Mexico, where in Mexico? You mean the Gulf on the west side, the east side, north, south? No, you have no idea where you're talking about. But if you call it the Gulf of Texas, you know exactly where it's going to be. I like that better. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of Texas. Of course, they don't do what I say, but I just like the idea. All right, coming up next, following the terrorist attack in New Orleans and even in Vegas, something terrible's happened. Fake fundraisers, scammers have made fake fundraisers under this cause, trying to, we're getting support, we're raising money for the victims, and then they're just keeping the money. How can you avoid these? We'll talk about that next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Man, sometimes when I'm bringing you the news, I'm just going through the headlines and reading the details, and it's just one horrible story after another, and it almost seems like a race to see who can get to hell first. So that we had the terror attacks, we're not so sure what the heck the Vegas one was motivated by. We just suspect terrorism because it happened in front of a Trump building with a Cybertruck. So maybe terrorist. The one in New Orleans, though, my God, just pure evil. We have a guy who I guess right now the sort of story is he had a couple of IEDs, but they didn't go off. So maybe as the backup plan was him driving into the crowd and then trying to shoot his way out. But on top of that, joining him in hell pretty soon are the people who set up these fake fundraisers for the victims. Scammers set up fake fundraisers, GoFundMe account if, this is going to go to the victims' families, and then someone absconds with the money. Boy, y'all like I said, can't get to hell fast enough, can you? Dr. Alex Del Carmen from Tarleton State, he's a criminologist. He's back on with The James Show. How do we know? You're a guy who has been observing criminal behavior for most of your adult life. How do we find which ones of these fundraisers are scams and which ones are legit?
There lies the $1 million question, right? So the idea is to be able to go to the, GoFundMe accounts and see if, in fact, the individual making the request is legitimate. The problem is we have no way of really knowing that unless you actually know the nature of what they're asking for. Typically, what I recommend for people to do is to not go to those websites to fund, relief efforts of some sort, but rather go to those that we actually already know that are in existence and are legitimate, such as the Red Cross and various others.
Let's talk about the type of person that would do that. I assume they have to be a sociopath, if not a psychopath. Am I just being too harsh with those terms?
No, I think you have to be, not only a little, but, a great deal of sociopathic-like behavior for you to be able to, first of all, use a tragedy such as this one to try to appeal to the good nature of the American people in order for you to scam people that in some cases they're giving all they've got, right? Because they're donating money that they probably shouldn't be donating in these very difficult circumstances, economically speaking. And so you have to have sort of a mindset that you don't care. You have no regards for people that would make that sacrifice. And then you lie on top of the actual misery that people are going through by missing their loved ones or perhaps in some cases, having lost all they have.
So let's talk about the mindset of the guy who was driving the truck. Was he a normal guy who got radicalized by an extreme version of a religion, or was he an already crazy person who just seemed to seize on an extremism that sort of justified his crazy thoughts?
So I don't think we have an answer as to, from a clinical perspective as to what exactly happened to this guy. But what I can tell you, just based on years of research and having dealt with these individuals before, is that this is a person that obviously was upset with our form of life, with our government. and started buying into sort of some of this international rhetoric that, these terrorist groups have, which is, how do you damage and do you hurt the United States in its vulnerable, areas, which is the American people, right? Innocent people. And so I think what we are likely going to find when the FBI is done with its investigation and we have all the facts in front of us is that this person slowly began to radicalize himself by virtue of watching videos, connecting perhaps with people overseas, and really beginning to sort of fantasize how he was going to be a martyr and a hero in this plight that they allegedly have against the United States.
I always feel like this is a chicken and egg exercise here, because was he a crazy person who seized on the violent ideas, or was he an otherwise normal person who you use the term self-radicalized, but I mean, did he make himself crazy, or was he already crazy?
I mean, I don't know that crazy, for me at least, it's not a word that I use to, provide a clinical diagnosis of people. If you're talking about mental illness, I think a lot of people suffer from mental illness that will never be engaging in criminal behavior, right? But I do think, however, that when it comes to these kinds of individuals, you have to have some degree of proneness of hatred, right, inside you, whether you're frustrated with the government or you're frustrated with something that happened to you by the government, and you begin to sort of buy into this rhetoric that the enemy of the world is the U.S. government, and you have to go after it. And so it's really sad, because it almost requires for the person to abandon all the things that you would have assumed that this person was taught, growing up, such as decency, law-abiding behavior, and whatnot, and begin to sort of engage in this new radicalization, which is, the enamored idea that somehow you're going to be a hero and you're going to die for this cause, which is obviously flawed, evil, and not true.
Well, I think some of the hesitation on the part of the media to give you the full story in this is they're concerned about racial profiling, and if this is, if we can pin this on Islamic terrorists, how do we, root out other future terrorist attackers without profiling the Muslim community as a whole? And I'm talking to the guy who literally wrote the book on it. First, explain the book, and then how would you approach that?
Well, racial profiling is when somebody engages in the purposeful act of stopping, in the case of law enforcement, enforcing the law based on that individual's race or ethnicity, or religious affiliation. I don't think this, in my view, for the FBI or any kind of federal entity to have targeted this person based on some early signs that he was being radical, I don't think that would have necessarily violated this person's civil rights, when, the fact that he happens to be a Muslim and the fact that he happens to be a former soldier, a veteran. None of these things are competing facts or would have prevented the federal agencies from doing that. And I don't know that I would agree with anyone saying that, or having criticized the federal agency for engaging in racial profiling back then, if they would have investigated this guy. But I do get what you're saying, in the sense that I think the community has, largely bought into this sort of argument that somehow, if we do something against a particular person that belongs to a minority group, it must mean because we're racist. And that's obviously not the case.
Yeah, I would just like, maybe moving forward, can we pull over the guy flying the ISIS flag out the back of his truck? I consider that to be sort of a red flag. But metaphors aside, when I say you wrote the book on racial profiling, you actually are one of the guys that agencies turn to know where the boundaries are. What is determined by your book? Where are those boundaries?
Well, the boundaries are in the Constitution, right? I mean, I think, look, it's a reality that, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I've said this in my book, 99.9% of law enforcement are honest, decent, hardworking people, and my book is really about making the case that most law enforcement are in that category, but that they are individuals that, just like any other profession, that we should have never allowed into the law enforcement community. And those individuals that we have allowed into the community of law enforcement, which is a noble, honorable community, I've never met a good cop that's told me that they want a bad cop next to them, right? So the idea is to be able to sort of filter them out if the process itself doesn't filter them. And so how do we do that? We look at data. We look at not necessarily who the officer is stopping, but how the officer is treating people, right? Is the Constitution prevailing as to the reasons why somebody got pulled over versus the officer feeling that you were, quote unquote, suspicious because of the type of car that you drove or because of your skin color or because of any other factor? But I do believe that in the end, the Constitution is the greatest if you want to call it filter as to when we make, decisions that are politically motivated versus those that are illegal.
Dr. Alex Del Carmen, thanks for being on the James Show. Where do they find your work outside of WBAP?
So they can find it at the tarleton.edu website. That's where my email is and some of my work is listed. So happy to engage in any conversations with your audience.
Fantastic. Appreciate your insights, Dr. Alex Del Carmen. Coming up next, my ongoing feud with the bike lane escalated today. I'll explain next. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. And I have some hot opinions for you people who like to ride bicycles around urban areas for funsies. That's coming up in about 4 minutes. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.